Wow, a 19-year-old Italian just made history in Shanghai. Both McLaren cars didn't even make it to the starting grid. Max Verstappen just went on the most explosive rant we've seen yet about the 2026 F1 regulations, and Lewis Hamilton finally got a podium for Ferrari. Round 2 of the 2026 Formula One World Championship, the Chinese Grand Prix. I'm Elger's Playbook, and let's break down this race weekend. This was a sprint weekend, which means the schedule was packed. You have qualifying for the sprint race itself, and qualifying for the race all crammed into Saturday. And it was the first big clue to who had pace on this circuit. So for the sprint qualifying, George Russell managed getting pole position, and he just beat his teammate Kimi Antonelli by not much. The sprint race itself goes to George Russell, who executes a clean run from the front to take the win, but what stood out is his teammate Kimi Antonelli right behind him. These two Mercedes drivers were clearly just ahead of the whole pack during the whole race. Ferrari did show some pace, Red Bull looked nervous, and McLaren, they weren't even in the talks of the top teams at all this weekend, which is a major storyline heading into Sunday. Then comes the full qualifying for the Grand Prix, and Antonelli does it. After his performance during qualifying, he ends up in pole position, and then he becomes the youngest pole sitter in Formula One Grand Prix history at a very tough circuit. Behind him is Russell in second, then Ferrari's Charles Leclerc in third, Hamilton fourth, and Verstappen all the way back in eighth, behind an Alpine. But after his crash in Melbourne during the first session of qualifying, that is at least progress. After qualifying, the grid looks set for another Mercedes versus Ferrari battle, but there's still some unexpected events to come on Sunday. Now, before we even get to the race itself, we need to talk about what happened in the McLaren garage. Both cars of both Norris and Oscar Piastri failed to even start the Grand Prix because both of their cars had electrical issues in their power units. And this is huge because last year they won the Constructors Championship, and now they've just completely fallen off. They've gone from the most dominant team in Formula One to now not even being able to start a race. And so this is just big news. And if there's a team that needs to figure out what's going on for their year, it's McLaren. They need to find an answer fast because losing these points in races is detrimental to them. Lights out in Shanghai, and Ferrari does it again. Lewis Hamilton, starting fourth, finds a gap around the outside of both Mercedes cars going into turn 1 and takes the lead. It's an absolutely crazy move, the kind only a 7-time world champion attempts on the opening lap of Grand Prix. For one lap, Lewis Hamilton leads the Chinese Grand Prix, and the crowd goes wild. The commentators lose their minds, and you can almost feel the emotion from Hamilton himself. But Antonelli is not here to let a moment like that define his race. By the end of lap 2, Antonelli blasts past Hamilton on the long back straight, reclaims the lead, and from that point forward, he is never overtaken again. So the race's pivotal moment came mid-distance through when Lance Stroll's Aston Martin stopped on track, causing a safety car to come out. Everyone pitted for hard tires, everyone lined back up for the restart, and after the restart, George Russell, who was in second position, struggled a lot on his cold tires, and that allowed Leclerc and Hamilton of the Ferraris to just sweep past him, and then after that, they ended up fighting for position. And during that fight, Kimi Antonelli, who was in position 1 after the restart, was just able to fly away because Leclerc and Hamilton were distracted with each other, slowing each other down. And George Russell, who was behind them in 4th position, was able to just sit back, watch them fight, and he saved his tire wear, he saved energy in his car, and then so after Leclerc and Hamilton's battle, he was just able to get those positions right back, ending up in P2. But after he got there, Kimi Antonelli was already way too far ahead to be caught, so it ended up being Kimi Antonelli P1 and George Russell P2. With only 4 laps to go, Antonelli had a bit of a scary moment when he ran wide at turn 14 and he lost 2 seconds to George Russell. But he managed to hold his nerve and he finished crossing the line 5.5 seconds ahead of Russell. And with this, Kimi Antonelli, 19 years and 202 days old, managed to become the second youngest driver to win a Grand Prix in Formula One history, just behind Max Verstappen. And we have to talk about Lewis Hamilton because this is his first podium in Ferrari. The last time Hamilton stood on the podium was in Las Vegas of November 2024 when he was in a Mercedes. It wasn't a win this time, but for Hamilton and Ferrari, after a tough opening to this new era, it's a start. And then there's Max Verstappen, whose race did not go too well at all. He retired the race with an electrical failure while running in sixth, and then delivered the most extraordinary post-race press conference we've had in a while. Verstappen has been critical of the 2026 regulations for a while now, but after China, he took it to a completely different level, calling the racing style terrible and comparing it to Mario Kart. His argument is that the battery development system creates artificial overtaking. One car uses more power, blasts past on a straight, then runs out of battery, and gets passed back on the next straight. Rinse and repeat. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that anyone who enjoys this style of racing does not understand what true racing is. Now, you can agree or disagree with Verstappen, but plenty of fans love the battle in Australia and in China. But the fact that a four-time world champion is this vocal, this passionate, and this frustrated with the product, that's a big story. F1 has confirmed they'll review the regulations but won't make any big major changes until the Miami Grand Prix, so this debate won't be going away anytime soon. Rounding out the points, Oliver Behrman continues to impress at Haas, finishing 5th. Pierre Gasly 6th for Alpine, Liam Lawson 7th for Racing Bulls, ahead of Isaac Hadjar in 8th after the Red Bull teenager spun early and recovered brilliantly. Carlos Sainz scored Williams' first points of the season in 9th, their first of 2026, and those points are very welcome. Enzo Colapinto grabbed the final point in 10th for Alpine after recovering from an early collision. Verstappen retired, both Aston Martins of Alonso and Stroll retired, and obviously both McLarens didn't even start the race. Only 15 cars finished the Chinese Grand Prix. This new formula is still eating at machinery at a rapid rate. So, where does the championship stand after only the second race of the season? Russell is leading by just 1 point over his teammate Antonelli. Think about that. Antonelli is only in his second season and is only 1 point behind his teammate. This Mercedes battle is going to be interesting throughout the whole year because so far it looks like they're going to be really close throughout the whole season. And Hamilton sits at 3rd, Leclerc at 4th, and Verstappen has had a terrible season so far, and he's sitting 30 plus points behind the lead. And he's just not looking like his old self in this Red Bull car this season. And in the Constructors Championship, Mercedes leads Ferrari comfortably, as both races have been the same. 1-2 for Mercedes, 3-4 for Ferrari. Next up on the calendar is the Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka. It's a good high-speed technical circuit that will let us know a lot more about which car is really the fastest. If you enjoyed this breakdown, leave a like and subscribe. I'll be covering every race for the rest of the F1 season in full. And I also want you guys to let me know in the comments what you think on Verstappen's point of view of the regulations for the season. Let me know. I'll see you guys in the next video, and thank you for watching.